justifying the down payment. Shoot a little bit higher. What's the worst that's going to happen? Now let's talk about this concept of shooting a little bit higher, and the worst that's going to happen is you're going to drop your initial payment. The broker's fee is going to be dropped at a smaller amount, or you're going to give a discount and you're going to decrease the total amount. But what's the worst that's going to happen? That's pretty much it. Now keep in mind, if you qualified correctly, if you confirmed correctly, if your justifying level is at a very high level, you're technically in control of the whole sales conversation. Customers are not going to leave because of an additional 50, 100 bucks. You have everything under control. So your confidence should be at a high level, and you should have the mentality of shooting higher. Now, what's the worst that's going to happen? If you, let's say your intentions was a 200 BF. So you're giving the client 250 to 320, for instance, 250 to 320. Now, why don't we increase it an additional $50, an additional $100? So instead of going 250 to 320, let's go 300 to 400. Now, you may have to utilize the 3 payment option and offer an option 2 so that you could give your option 1 a lot more value, but the whole concept is let's shoot a little bit higher. Now, if you know there's no negatives at all, keep this in mind. No negatives at all. Your customer likes you. You've been able to break the ice. At least you are able to connect and relate with the client. Your client has not given you any negatives whatsoever, meaning they have not disclosed anything such as that's too much, or I'm not interested in getting it today. I'm not so sure. We'll see what happens. Or simply, I don't have too much money, or I don't want to pay more than enough, more than, a couple bucks, more than 100, more than 150. If they don't give you any reason to doubt their satisfaction level, if they haven't given you any negative responses, any negative remarks, or just any statements that would be considered negative, then you have everything under control. So they're not introducing any negatives whatsoever, and you've followed the system. You qualified correctly. You confirmed every step of the confirmation level. Your justifying factors have been executed at a high level. Your customers convinced. They like you. They seem not to have any negatives whatsoever. Let's shoot higher. What's the worst that's going to happen? We'll drop it a little bit. That's it. No negatives at all. Now, on the contrary, your level of confidence is going to keep increasing by you charging more. The more you charge, the more powerful you're going to become, because you're going to understand that it's easy, that it's something possible, and it's something that you've already done. And that's going to motivate you to keep trying to shoot as high as the previous policy or even higher. See, when I was an agent, and we're talking of a very long time ago, my goal was to charge $300 to $400 on every single deal. There's going to be a segment about the 300 mentality, and I talk about just assuming the sell, just walking in, being so confident, knowing that everything is going to fall into place. You're going to follow the system. You're going to execute everything at a high level, that everything is going to fall into place. You're going to shoot higher, and you're going to be able to close them. Once again, you're going to close them simply because you're assuming that it's a done deal. You're assuming that you have all the ability, all the power, all the tools, all the knowledge, the confidence. You have every closing tool that you could possibly have to justify that. And most importantly, you understand that your service is at a high level, so therefore they should pay a little bit more than any other agency. See, we're not going to compare ourselves as far as the service that we offer with other agencies, but we offer service that other agencies don't offer. So all of these factors are connected into shooting a little bit higher. This is the reason why you shoot a little. You should go for a little bit of a higher BF. Worst case scenario, you could drop it. So by giving the client a little bit more of an approximate, instead of 250 to 320, go 300 to 400. All you have to do is just add value. You should continue to add value, educate them on why they should pay that $300 to $400, educate them on why the insurance company would require those $300 to $400. Educate them on all the factors, benefits, features, coverages, limits that they're obtaining, and therefore those $300 to $400 they could justify. See, there's another segment where we're going to talk about customers are willing to pay whatever you're requesting as long as it makes sense to them. If it doesn't make sense to them, they're going to question every single option that you give them. It doesn't matter if you're charging them a $50 broker suite. If they don't understand, they don't believe that those $50 is something that they should pay, they're going to fight you. Matter of fact, the most difficult deals are the small, we call them babies, the small BFs. Those are the most difficult deals because customers don't believe that they should pay anything at all. So it's very difficult to transfer someone's mentality that doesn't want to pay anything at all to understanding why they should pay something. So therefore it becomes a small BF. But those are customers that are a bit more difficult, and we're talking of 1 out of 10, not the highest percentage. The majority of the customers, they're willing to pay whatever you ask them as long as it makes sense. So once again, let's shoot a little bit higher. So if you made a decision of going for a 150, let's go for a 250. Matter of fact, let's start adding $100 more on the broker's fee. So if you want to settle for a 200, let's shoot for a 300. And then there's going to be another segment where I talk about customers are going to fight you anyways. So let's say, for instance, if we shoot for a 300, they're going to fight you and we settle for a 250. It's a lot better than shooting for a 200. They're going to fight you anyways and settling for a 150. So all of these are part of the mentality. You have to understand how things work. So when shooting, when offering, when executing an approximate on the total down payment, let's start adding a little bit more. Now, if you feel that the customer is going to be very, very difficult or a bit more difficult, or maybe they're going to fight you a little bit more, then instead of adding 100, but let's add $50. So if you wanted to go for a 150, let's go for a 200. If you wanted to go for a 250, let's go for a 250. The concept of shooting a little bit higher, what's the worst that's going to happen is just understanding that if you follow the system, if you did everything you should have done, if you executed every step at a high level, and customers are not giving you too many negatives, the worst is going to happen is you're going to drop it a little bit. You're going to give them an option 3. That's the worst that's going to happen. You're going to give them option 1. That doesn't work. You're going to emphasize an option 2 to justify your option 1. That's not going to work. Then guess what? Give them option 3. That's the whole concept of a 3-payment option. You're going to focus on option 1. Your option 2 is an option to back your option 1 to make your option 1 seem a lot better, to add value to option 1. And if that doesn't work, then you introduce an option 3. Option 3 is simply dropping the broker's fee, giving them something a little bit lower, and then that should be enough to close a deal. So once again, shoot a little bit higher. What's the worst that's going to happen? The worst that's going to happen is you'll drop it a little bit more. But guess what? Most likely you're going to settle with something higher than what you initially thought you were going to shoot for. So once again, if you want to shoot for a $50 broker's fee, go for 100. If you want to shoot for 100, go for 200. If you want to go for 150, go all the way to 250. If you want to go for a 300, let's shoot for a 400. What's the worst that's going to happen? We'll give them an option 3. We'll lower the initial payment, but as long as you follow the system, you're under control.